I made it so every modifier given by missions in Europa Universalis IV is permanent. Every mission that gives a modifier, no matter how big or small, will give that modifier for the rest of the game. That means early, build army, get morale missions will boost that nation forever. Make friends and get diplomat missions as well, and of course any mission that gives economic bonuses will also exist in perpetuity. Question of the day, what is your favorite modifier to stack in EU4? Modifier for mana savings, military, diplomacy? Let us know in the comments below. And there's not really much to explain in this one that I wouldn't have said in the intro. All modifiers that are given via missions, and that is all of them, every single one of them that gives a modifier like this one right here, will be permanent for the rest of the game. So nations that have very fleshed out mission trees like England, Castile, Austria, Poland, basically any of these guys that have gotten Lines of the North stuff, because Lines of the North was busted. They will all be permanent modifiers, and they will continue to stack them up over time. So let's go ahead and see what happens. Best way to do that, speed 5, unpause. And a couple of cheeky wars going off early. This time it is Hungary attacking Wallachia, and looking to the south, sadly our boys in Constantinople have been sieged down, and it is only a matter of time before the auto blob kind of moves their capital. The poor boys in Novgorod cannot catch a break. Denmark declared war on them and are absolutely demolishing them. And then Muscovy and Poland jumped in the meantime. What do you guys think? Do they stand a chance? Do you think that they will exist in any meaningful way after this war? And under 2 years in, we do have the PU for Poland, and they have declared on their own behalf to push up here into Novgorod. Very smart on their end, because if they can cut off Muscovy, that would be really good, because Poland got a massive mission tree in the 1.34 patch, and it is going to give some crazy modifiers that stack up very high. And yeah, Novgorod completely done dirty, cut quite a bit of their lands to Denmark, a couple of provinces over here, and the rest to Muscovy, with 3 provinces for themselves. But Poland over here getting a little bit big for their britches, declaring war on Crimea, but more importantly, declaring war on the Ottomans. Poland, Lithuania versus the Ottomans. And it's not even 1450 yet. Numbers are surprisingly very even, actually a lead for Poland ever so slightly, and it's hard to say how exactly things are going to go. Crimea and the Ottomans already have decent war exhaustion going on, and their losses are roughly even as well. So honestly, this is anybody's game. Ah, yes, it appears that France here is going to India. In 1452, they have a permanent modifier giving them colonial range and global settler increase. Very nice. Couple of these other ones you're going to see are from Zormi AI. It's an AI mod that I use to basically make it so the AI is a little more competent, and I don't have to go in and change anything, which I prefer not to if I can avoid it. But you can see here, Castile is ready for war, and they will remain ready for war for the rest of the game. 5% morale of armies and navies, just free modifiers. And I should say this, that anything that happens via an event is not permanent, it's only missions. So it's going to exclusively affect nations that have missions that give modifiers. That being said, generic mission trees still get permanent modifiers like this Diplo rep right here, Diplo annex cost. So it's not all bad for them. It's just that nations that get certain buffs might be in a better position. Brandenburg over here with Imperial Grace is giving them a free diplomat and 25% improved relations, which is very strong. And a little over 10 years in the north here, you have Ireland slowly but surely being united by the British. A couple of provinces going into Brandenburg with a bit of expansion. France continuing to unite France. And Castile dotting the coastline here of northern Africa, just like in real life. Out in the steppes, Uzbek has taken over a ton of land from Oirat, and Mongolia has been gobbled up by the Ming. And it's not just Mongolia, because the Ming have a bunch of random lands up here in Manchuria all over the place, and Korea has actually gotten a bit stronger and pushed a bit into Manchuria, one province over there in Vladivostok. Meanwhile, Timmy pushes into India, and it looks like they're currently losing a war to Delhi and Sindh. And I have no idea what just happened, but Gascony was released from France by Austria because they have a truce with Austria. I don't know how, I don't know why, but I assume they got a coalition war, if that's the only thing I can imagine happened. And then Castile is currently dominating Portugal, their historical ally. So Castile's feeling a little bit frisky as in this one as well. Albania over here has taken some land from Venice all the way up into Bosnia, and they even have this Euboea province in the Aegean Sea. So that is really good. I am definitely always rooting for Albania, because if you guys don't know, Albania is nice country, and when Allah created the world, he gave all the land to Albania. But because Albania is nice country, they gave their land to other country. Aside from that, we have a very Hungary and a Bohemia who is pushed up and taken Berlin because Brandenburg got squished. Austria doing a bit of snaking over in the mountains, and they actually annexed Saxony. I don't know how, but they annexed them. Oh, lads, Venice is also Albanian. Venice is Albanian. I love it. I love it. Albania is officially my favorite tag in EU4, and they also have probably the best color in my mind. Can you think of a better color? Change my mind. I'm open. Assam over here in the mountains of Tibet is also a very nice color. I like that color. We have Danish Russia, Polish Russia, Muscovy, the Great Horde, and Nogai is absolutely massive now. And then Uzbek continues to hold the steps over here. But how about that Ming? They have grown even bigger yet. Ayutthaya is having a good start. Bengal is doing okay. They haven't really moved a whole lot, but Bamanis has taken up a lot of the development from Vijayanagara, pushing well past their capital, and they attempt to be the main player here in the Indian subcontinent. Okay, that does make sense. They were actually PUing Portugal, and they are actually loyal at the moment. So we'll see how things go with that. I'm not sure. They should be able to keep them. They should be able to keep them. So yeah, they pushed it via that, and they're also allied to Aragon. And I imagine they are going to get it as soon as they can. They still haven't even gotten Enrique yet. So if they're lucky, they'll be able to get a female heir and maybe eventually a female ruler, and they'll be able to get Aragon and Naples. That would be an incredibly powerful Castile. Oh my gosh, lads, I think the Ottomans done stepped in it. They got coalitioned by Austria, and they don't even have that big of a coalition, but Austria called in their allies in the war and are absolutely dominating the Ottomans. Take a look at that, outnumbering them 2-1. And even though they're taking massive casualties, the Ottomans are getting destroyed. Lads, we've even got a couple of provinces occupied by Albania in the war, and I am so here for it, dude. I'm so here for it. And meanwhile, France actually is in a war against Austria and Castile/Portugal as well, because they got a punitive war against them by Savoy. So all of these nations just keep getting coalitioned. And oh my gosh, it's just so bad. It's so bad. I didn't realize the Ottoman War and the French War were separate, but they are, and they're both going to get absolutely squished. And after the punitive war, it looks like France has become quite a bit different. It looks like Gascony got annexed by a bunch of people, mostly just Castile and Toulouse. Brittany has been released, so you could say France is a bit more yellow, but at the same time, so is Great Britain, because Britain here has gotten mostly annexed by the Scots, and they're actually in a war again to kind of finish them off. We've also got French in Britain, which is a whole tragedy on its own. But how about Wales and Northumberland going entirely to the Scots? Also, shout out East Frisia over here, looking very big, very beefy. Home of Chio, one of my main boys on the channel. He is a chimp, which is one of the patrons that we have, but he's also one of the homies at the same time. And if you don't know, you can become one of the homies as well. If you click the join button below the video, you can get early access to all the videos that come out on this channel, as well as my other channel, Chewy Shoot. And the higher tiers, we actually have a monthly multiplayer that we play whatever games we really feel like it. And you also get exclusive access to chats in the Discord with roles and all that stuff. So if that sounds interesting to you, make sure you check out the join button below the video. Now, I'm a little sad to say over here that Austria definitely won their punitive war against the Ottomans. They released that nation down in the south, but then they went in and they annexed Albania, pushing them to an OPM over here in Herzegovina. They even took Venetia, and I don't understand what happened there. I thought that they were friends, but apparently not. Regardless, the Ottomans were slowed down, but they have not been defeated yet. But the Mamluks are doing incredibly well, going all the way down into the Horn of Africa and uniting most of Arabia. But then we can take a look up here in the north, and you will say, holy Poland, Batman. That is a very, very big Poland. And I would agree. They're even up here beating the tar out of Denmark to push them out of Russia. And I always love to see a cool Sapmi on the map, so shout out Sapmi. Also, Uzbek has formed Bukhara, which is a very nice map flag as well. Kind of looks like Assyria in my Ancients Reborn mod, which you should check out as well if you haven't checked that mod out. I actually did a video on Assyria over on my other channel, Chewy Shoot, so you should check that out. Meanwhile, Ming continues to do what Ming does, and they've lost a bit of land down here to Ayutthaya, but aside from that, they are looking incredibly strong, but they do have some rebels, so I assume Mandate is on the DL. India looking pretty much the same, but Baumanis continues to push south, pushing VJ down. And Timmy has been split up by a bunch of different people. They've even kicked out a couple of extra tags like the Sistan, who they had annexed before, I believe. And then Ajam has cut them in half, and Afghanistan is independent and is beating up on them in another war. Kilwa has united the majority of the development in the Horn all the way down into East Africa, and Congo has united Central. Meanwhile, in the west, Songhai and Timbuktu are the main powers, but we do have a Kabu popping out looking very interesting color-wise. Sadly, we do not have Dahomeys on the map this time, but I got a couple of comments, and I'm curious how you guys feel about it. In the video where I put all the monuments in Rome, I got a few comments saying that we should put all of the monuments in Dahomeys, and I'm down to do it if you guys want to see it. So if you want to see that, make sure you let me know in the comments below. Or any other ideas for that matter. I'm always open to suggestions in the comments. On the colonial front, we have Cabo Verde going to the Portuguese, as well as some lands over here, Puerto Rico and Bani. And over here in what I think is Newfoundland, we have the Norwegians settling what I believe is Labrador? Happy Leif Erikson Day! Ottomans at war with Poland right now, taking a bit of land up here after losing quite a bit of land to Austria in the Balkans, as well as pushing into Anatolia. For that matter, Austria has conquered a ton of land. Looks like they got the Burgundian inheritance and have split part of France with Spain, who has formed in the south, and then Scotland, who is currently at war with France and likely to push France out of England. East Frisia continues to hang on, and how about that Hamburg pushing up into Scandinavia of all places, and they even have land in Russia, and I have no idea why, but they do. One of them is a trade center, but aside from that, they're not. So yeah, I don't really know why they wanted it. Down in France, Songhai is continuing to do well, and it looks like they have actually been the dominant power here in Central/Sub-Saharan Africa, but Spain is encroaching on them. Meanwhile, in the other parts of Africa, Mamluks have pushed Kilwa to the south, and Kilwa is actually not looking too good. They lost a decent chunk of their land to Mutapa, who I assume was released in a peace deal, if I had to guess, or rebels, maybe? I don't know. In the Indian power blocks are definitely there. Delhi in the north, Malwa in the central parts, and Baumanis in the south, with Bengal having like 1444 borders for some reason. I got excited because I thought this was Naples for a second, but it's actually just like an opium Indian guy. Not a whole lot going on down here, though I do have to say the boys of Bone, the Boner boys, if you will, continue to thrive over here on their little island in the Spice Islands. And Ayutthaya is actually doing quite well. It looks like Ming is a bit unstable, and Ayutthaya is taking advantage of that, pushing well past Canton. And taking a look at these rebels, it's only a matter of time before China falls. Bukhara continuing their relentless push west, pushing into Nogai, and also at war with Perm currently. And a little over 100 years in, Austria actually out in front with 100 dev more than Spain, who is doing pretty good in their own regards. And then about half of their development is the Mamluks in third place, followed by Poland, the Ottomans, Ming still doing pretty well for now, and then Ayutthaya, then Savoy actually with 600 development in the 8th spot. I should show that Savoy and France are colonizing Brazil, with Spain in the south as well as over here in Peru, and then we also have them up here in Colombia, encroaching on my beloved Muisca. Like, how could you want to conquer these people? Look at that hat. That's a very nice hat, but also look at those piercings, man. That's actually kind of scary. I wouldn't mess with this dude. Interesting factoid of history, the Muisca are actually the guys who kind of started the El Dorado myth, the story of the Lake of Gold. And if I recall correctly, they had a religious rite where they would throw gold into the lake to basically appease their gods, and it led to this rumor of, hey, there's a lake in Colombia that's got a ton of gold in it. And I believe it was the Muisca. I'm almost positive. Correct me if I'm wrong though. Regardless, the Caribbeans are all Spain because they annexed Portugal and got all of their colonies. They're also into Mexico, and then we have the 13 colonies over here on the east coast, not to be confused though with Danish Maryland, and then over here we have the 13 colonies up here in Canada. So yeah, that's a thing. And Norway has colonized the rest of this island over here, only to lose their original colony to Sweden. So yeah, I don't really know what's going on, to be honest. And to literally nobody's surprise, it is 1620, and the Ming is like a 1 or 2 province minor in northern China, with Ayutthaya actually splitting the majority of the development with Shun and a little bit of Ning, Shu, and then a little bit of Yu down there in the south. In case you did not know, Taiwan is actually Japan, as is the entirety of Japan, except for this Sakhalin or whatever. That is actually Korea, who is absolutely massive, encompassing the entirety of Manchuria, as well as, of course, Korea. And they've actually even pushed up a little bit over here into Chukchi, or whatever this region is called. So Korea having a very solid regional game. Pushing out into the steppes, Bukhara is absolutely massive, with a Afghanistan that is doing okay. And then, oh my gosh, how about that Poland with Lithuania still hanging in there? Too big, actually, to get incorporated into the PLC, if I recall. But actually, Poland is pushing back against the Ottomans after losing a bit of land up here to them previously. And it actually looks like the Ottomans are getting ganged up on by the Mamluks as well as Poland at the same dang time, so they don't stand a chance. As far as Europe goes, Austria has actually dominated almost the entirety of it, and they're even doing better than they were before. But how about that Scotland, who hasn't even pushed England out of England? And then Spain, who pushed about halfway up into France, as well as integrating Naples. They've conquered a ton of land over in Africa, and they continue the colonial game, only it appears that they're putting most of their eggs into the South American basket, which is indeed a separate continent from North America, which a lot of people don't seem to understand. Mosquito controls Panama. Do you guys think that they will build the Panama Canal? That would be pretty cool. And the Mamluks are actually in South Africa, the Horn of Africa, all of Arabia, and it looks like they're actually trying to push into Hormuz at the moment as well. So Mamluks definitely somebody to keep on your radar. And so for the final checkup, Spain is well out in front, almost 1,400 development ahead of Lithuania, because Lithuania broke free from Poland. And Austria is a personal union of Lithuania. Okay, I've officially seen everything now. I have seen everything that this game has to offer. I will see you guys in the next episode. Actually wild. Lithuania, #2 great power, because they got a PU on Austria, who is probably the #2 great power on their own. Okay, whatever. Regardless, Mams are actually in 3rd place, which I expected them to be pretty high up. And then Ayutthaya in 4th with Bamanis, Poland, the Ottomans still hanging out in the 7th spot with over 1,000 development. And then Bukhara in the 8th spot. Shun is currently the Emperor of China, losing 0.95 mandate per month. So safe to say they are not going to have it for long. I imagine Ayutthaya will try to take it eventually, but I could be wrong. And I never really pointed out the Reformation because not really anything interesting was happening. Protestant is basically gone, and then Reformed is over here with some Anglican, but that's about it. Everything else for the most part is just very Catholic, and then Sunni over here. It's really pretty boring, sadly. Now, I've always got to point it out whenever I see it, and boy, do I love to see it. United States all the way from sea to shining sea with a big old Illinois. Very funny. Also, Vancouver Island is a 1-province minor, Pacifico Norte. California controls all the way from California down to Baja California, the natural borders of California, and then a bit of, what is this, Arizona, I think it is. So yeah, California doing okay, and then Mexico doing quite well also with Cuba. And you guys are going to notice there's a bit of a trend here. We've got a bunch of independent former colonies of Spain, Colombia, Paraguay, Chile, and then we also have the Brazilian nations over here with Lithuanian colonies. Mamluks in Congo split most of Africa, and then Spain was split with a few people, as well as just a bunch of mess over here. This is a mess. I hate this. India finished with a very united Deccan, going to war with a very scary Ayutthaya, and Korean Tartary is a thing, and I didn't think I needed it, but I definitely needed it. Of course, with their capital of Nanjing. Korea even jumping across the sea here into Japan. Insert whatever commentary you'd like to about that one. I always love seeing a united Australia, and then across the sea here, we actually have a colonial territory of Australia that is called Australian Australia. And probably my favorite thing of the entire campaign here is Sundanese Greenland. That is correct. This is Sunda, the Indonesian nation, has colonized Eriksfjord. So they also have a couple of random islands, like here. I think this is Prince Edward Isle. It's Sundanese. So okay, but of course you guys want to see what happened, and let's take a look at what happened. It looks like Lithuania integrated Austria. They kept them loyal long enough and then integrated them, pushed Poland for the most part out of Poland except for like Prussia, and now Poland is Eastern Europe / Prussia, as well as a couple of random provinces over here. A bit of a resurgence for the Pope man, which is very cool. I love to see that. Again, more border gore. So I think Spain absolutely just collapsed and a ton of different people popped out. We even got a little bit of Liesian Iberia over here. I don't know how, I don't know why. I'm not going to ask questions. We also have Cuban Iberia, because nations like to conquer lands that are the same culture group as them, and Cuban is an Iberian culture. So very funny. We have Morocco, Tlemcen, Tunis, and Britain all within the same area over here. Very weird. And then Savoy actually has a couple of provinces here in Sicily, right next to Sicily. So Yeah, and funnily enough, the only French nation that still exists is Gascony. I don't know how they managed to hold on, but they definitely did. Trent just posted up in the Alps with their level 8 fort holding still, hoping that Lithuania does not notice that they have not annexed them yet. And then Cologne held on and did pretty well in northern Germany. Actually, funnily enough, not in Cologne, but everywhere else around them. And they even got up into Scandinavia, which is funny because Denmark is just a couple of provinces in North Jutland. The rest is all Poland and then Cologne, of all people. Muscovy is here, again, not controlling Moscow, and then Britain is actually over here in British Novgorod. The Great Horde and Bukhara also held on, though sadly Bukhara did not do very well in the long term. Though it has to be pointed out, the Mamluks' borders are very impressive. They've got all the land from the Sahel all the way over to the Horn of Africa, down to Eastern Africa and Zanzibar, and they even took over a bit of Madagascar, so it's safe to say the Mamluks have a very large empire. However, it is not large enough to give them the #1 spot. That will go, of course, to Lithuania, who controls most of the development in Europe, followed by Ayutthaya, of all people, because they have most of the land in China. Then the Mamluks are very closely behind them, almost eking out the #2 spot, with Korea in the 4th spot, followed by Deccan, the US, Poland, who still did pretty good despite getting eclipsed by Lithuania, of all people, and then Cologne in the #8 spot with 1,500 development. Of course, a fully stacked economic hegemon for Lithuania, making them even scarier than they already would have been. And the world is very Catholic in Europe, very Sunni over here, and then very Buddhist over in China, which is very cool. You don't see that very often. Usually the Buddhists do not strike back. Instead, usually the Buddhists get steamrolled because, you know, they're searching for Zen and all that, and they don't really fight wars very good. But this time we do have Buddhists, and they did very good. I respect it. They're Catholic down under, and the New World is almost exclusively Catholic, except America, funnily enough, is Anglican. They are the Federal Republic of the United States. Now, they were a monarchy, and it was funny because when I looked, they had a King David the First of House David, so I thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, no, they are the Federal Republic now. We have a one province minor, Brunswick, which is Protestant, and they are the only Protestant, the only one, I'm pretty sure, in the entire world. The only place in Europe that is Reformed is Great Britain, and for some reason it's not their state religion. And yes, my friends, that is because they are also a junior partner of Lithuania, because Lithuania became the von Habsburgs this time. In this timeline, the Gonzaga dynasty is the ubiquitous dynasty that gets on every throne in Europe. And they actually just got that PU in October of 1816, so very recently. I love it. Hilarious. Lithuania going from a junior partner in a personal union with Poland to a senior partner against Austria, who I think was #1 great power, to integrating them and then subjugating Great Britain, who on their own has 2,200 development. So safe to say Lithuania has won the game. Of course, we should look through a couple of the modifiers that are awarded to these nations. And just at a quick glance, it looks like the Lithuanian Hussars have arrived. 60% Cav combat ability is crazy. They have +7 Diplo rep, which is really nice, +8 diplomats, a massive 95% goods produced, 122% improved relations, 65% force limit, a total of 10 merchants, which is crazy, 55% morale of armies. So that's mostly army tradition, which is crazy. And I don't know what exactly it is because they didn't even get through most of their mission tree, but the Lithuanians popped off and ended up winning despite not having most of their mission trees done. Spain made it through most of theirs and they ended up crumbling, so I don't really know exactly what caused that. And the Pope made it through a good portion of theirs as well. Great Britain also made it through quite a bit of their mission tree, especially the early parts. But Poland losing early and not getting through most of this mission tree probably absolutely just ruined it for them. If they would have got like half of the modifiers here, they would probably be without a doubt the strongest nation in the game. Also, I just realized these 3 provinces are Korea. These are owned by Korea. Though the Pope 100% deserves a special mention because these borders are very good for an AI Pope that has no buffs. And funnily enough, Lithuanian culture is like non-existent. Instead, it's all Ruthenian culture. The Ruthenians have spread all the way down across the Caucasus into northern Anatolia. Hungarians have spread all the way down into the Balkans, and now there is no more Serbians. In fact, there's hardly any Romanians. It's almost all Hungarian, though there is one province of Bosnians, so you got that going for you. Austrian also pushed into Hungarian lands, so that's a thing. And Frankian was pushed for the most part out of northern France, and Norman is almost exclusively gone. Burgundian is there. Burgundian has replaced a ton of it, and I think Walloon was even partially replaced. The cultures over here are interesting as well. You have this Zhuang, which is part of the Siamese group, and they have converted a bit of the land down here, with Vietnamese splitting it with them. But how about this Zhongguan, or whatever that is, converting the majority of the development here in China, and then Sino-Korean joining the group because Korea became the emperor. Congolese crossed over the borders here and converted a bit of the land over here in East Africa. And aside from French Brazil, which let me just say sounds like a fever dream if I'm being honest, there is almost exclusively Iberian cultures, with Platinian and Brazilian and Portuguese and Castilian making up most of the development of South America, as well as Cuba, Mexican and Castilian making up the majority of North America, splitting it with American, English, and you cannot forget about the Scottish provinces up in here of the Gulf of St. Lawrence, I think this is called. We do have a couple of Danes and Norwegians over here in the Leif Erikson boys, but alas, they have been incorporated into the melting pot that is America. And I always get asked about it, so let's take a quick look at the development map mode. You can see the Pope Man's development from space. Almost every single province that he has is 30 or more development. Look at this, 58 in Rome. We got 49 in Lucca, and then all these provinces in northern Italy are roughly 40 or more, which is very impressive. Even Spain has good development, 42 over here in Madrid. And aside from that, the lowest they have is like 12. Britain has great development, especially in their coal provinces. Chester at 44, London at 43, and then Lothian up here is at 40, so respectable. Cologne did quite well, actually finishing in the top 8, so clearly they have a lot of highly developed provinces. 42 here, 45, so a few 50 over in Westfalen, and then Frankfurt is actually 52, so that is impressive. And how about Vilnius, the capital of Lithuania? 59 development with 23 production. That is crazy strong. 53 in this province here, and then 48 over here. Beijing is at 52 development, and a couple of other provinces in the 40s, but nothing crazy that I am seeing. And religion-wise, Catholic wins the day with Sunni in second, and Theravada Buddhism in third place, with Hindu in fourth, Fetishist in fifth, and Anglican in sixth. Very interesting. Most military losses in the world were Lithuania, followed very closely by the Mamluks, though most of their men were lost to attrition because the AI is the AI, and even Zormi AI cannot fix that. I do really hope that you guys enjoyed that video, and if you did, make sure you let me know by leaving a like on the video and subscribe. And a huge shout out to the patrons and channel members who keep this channel going. If you want early access to these videos and exclusive Discord benefits, make sure you check out the link in the description or the join button below the video.